When a businessman becomes the architect of a criminal scheme and law enforcement officials help carry it out, public trust erodes at every level.
4 lawmen who sold their signature, 1,200 people picked up in one Georgia sweep. 720 of them already in the system before ICE even knocked on the door. $350 million finally getting checked across 7 states. A doctor's phone with 34,000 text messages on it that Congress had to subpoena to read. America, 5 men in Louisiana just admitted that they ran a police department like a drive-through window, like Jack in a Box or Carl's Jr. And here's the thing, nobody had to hack a system. Nobody had to forge a badge here. All they had to do was sign a piece of paper that nobody was actually checking. That's it. That is the entire crime. The same broken system, sign it, don't check for anything, is the same reason the mayor's office in New York City just got smacked down by judges for taxing people who don't even qualify.
This U visa scam has been going on for a long time. I saw it firsthand. Many years. I used to issue these U visas, but the U visa became this kind of a loophole where if you couldn't get any other kind of visa, well, maybe you were a victim of a crime, whether...
What is up, guys? Tyson DeLaCruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. A Subway sandwich shop in Oakdale, Louisiana, became the paperwork office for the entire police department. Chandler Campbell, shout out to my 3-name, 2-name, whatever name, last name individuals ran the counter, okay? Chad Doyle ran the Oakdale Police Department. Fred Shanley ran the city marshal's office. Glenn Dixon ran Forest Hills Department. A 5th man's name shows up spelled differently 3 different ways across different newscasts, which tells me something about how fast this got covered. All 5 men just pled guilty. The scheme ran from 2015, and it took the FBI, ICE, and the IRS working together to finally shut it down in July 2024.
A massive years-long immigration fraud scheme involving an Oakdale business owner and several prominent local law enforcement leaders has ended in federal guilty pleas. Shakondarant Patel, Chad Doyle, Michael Slaney, Glenn Dixon, and Thibault Onashe have all pleaded guilty for their roles in a conspiracy to fraudulently obtain U visas for foreign nationals. Federal investigators say the group had been running the operation since 2015.
Quick call back here. These 2 men got arrested at their own chief of police conference. I don't know if you remember that video. The fresh part is how it actually came apart. Investigators noticed a cluster of armed robberies in small Louisiana towns where every single victim happened to be out of state. Then in February last year, somebody tried to hand a Rapid parish deputy $5,000 in cash to, look the other way. That's that loose thread here that unraveled.
Federal prosecutors say a Louisiana visa fraud scheme is now heading toward guilty pleas. Former Oakdale Marshal Fred Slaney has pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit visa fraud, accused of helping create fake police reports so immigrants could get special U visas meant for crime victims. He faces up to 5 years in federal prison.
Now here is where it gets a little uncomfortable.
These defendants' disgraceful fraud endangered our community and undermined the public trust in the immigration system, solely to line their own pockets. These guilty pleas confirm the depth of corruption uncovered here and the strength of the evidence.
A U visa exists for crime victims who help police basically build up a case. A cop has to sign a file saying that the crime actually happened and the victim actually cooperated. Nobody downstream checks whether the entire situation was real. They check whether the signatures are actually real. So the crime stopped needing to actually be real. It just needed to be a man behind a Subway counter who knew which cops would sign the documents or not. And it needed cops willing to sign the documents. This is the same dog and pony show as the car dealership doc freeze situation. Nobody at the finance desk is checking whether the fee or what the fee actually covers. They're just basically checking that line has ink on it or not. The ink here is all Patel at the Subway was ever selling. Every fake robbery filed under this scheme meant a real crime victim somewhere else was waiting longer for a visa that actually existed here to protect them. That's who paid for this. Not an agency, a person standing behind a line, waiting behind a lie. I'll tell you what I actually believe here, you guys. A guy sat behind a sandwich counter, a Subway sandwich counter for 10 years, signing off on crimes that never, ever happened. Nobody forced him to do that. He decided it fresh. Every single deposit, every single new customer who walked in with cash and a story. That's not a system failing somebody. That's a man choosing the same theft on a loop here at a Subway shop. Sentencing is set for September. Watch whether or not Patel actually gets close to 20 years or whether it quietly turns into a number that just fits nicer between a press release. More than 1,200 people picked up in one Georgia sweep. 7 out of 10 of them already had a criminal record before ICE was even knocking the door. That's not a rounding error here, you guys. That is a state letting out dangerous people over and over again. Just keep living next door, walking past your kid's school.
More than half of those people had criminal histories. And as you said, we're talking about sex crimes, assault and battery, some with DUI convictions, domestic violence.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement says it was part of Operation Safe Community. The agency says 720 of those arrested are either charged with or were convicted of crimes in the U.S. 5 people were also arrested at a trucking company.
1,200 arrests, 700 restaurant kitchen workers worth of guys who've already been written up. Try running a kitchen where 7 out of 10 cooks already have a strike against them, and you keep scheduling every single one of them anyways. That is the operation that Georgia was running without noticing.
I'll never approach a door of an aircraft without wondering if there's guys standing back there.
John Phillips says it was supposed to be a routine work trip to Las Vegas, but a Delta agent told him the airline was working to upgrade his seat. He just needed to board last.
And they cuffed me and started asking me, what's your name? What's your birthday? I tell them I'm an American citizen.
He says after about 5 minutes in handcuffs, agents found his Georgia ID and showed him a picture of the man they were actually looking for.
I mean, when they realized that you weren't their guy, was there any apology?
No, not at all. And
Phillips now wants to know how this happened.
I just am flabbergasted that all of the security that we have at the airport, that they don't know that I am the John Phillips that lives in Georgia.
Apparently, according to the lamestream media, an American citizen handcuffed on a jet bridge, held on a name and a birthday matched by somebody else. And nobody said sorry when they figured it out. Obviously, they were just doing their job. And now ICE agents are now getting death threats at times higher than ever before. And they're still posting record numbers. 51,000 arrests in 1 month alone nationally. You can't ask the department to do their job and starve the department of cooperation that makes the job possible. You got to pick one here. At least in my opinion here, citizens of the United States come first in this country, full stop, period, end of story. That is the slogan. That is the budget line. Every single dollar spent guarding officers who are doing exactly what Congress told them to do is a dollar that has to exist because somebody locally decided cooperating with federal agencies wasn't politically convenient. The next case shows what it looks like when somebody actually fixes the sign it and don't check it problem instead of just complaining about it. One state started checking the paperwork before it got signed. That is the entire story. Speaking of nobody checking paperwork, Medicare works the exact same way. Most people sign up and assume that somebody's looking out for them. Nobody's looking out for them. That is exactly why I partner with today's video sponsor, Chapter. I'm not letting people walk through the wrong plan or overpay years because they trusted a system that wasn't actually built to protect them. Chapter's trusted advisors compare every single Medicare plan available and advocate for you, not the insurance company. I'm talking about no pushy sales tactics here. People are saving over $1,100 a year just from one free call. Go ahead and check out Chapter at askchapter.org/Tyson. Again, that is askchapter.org/Tyson, or you can call 270-467-0614. Again, that number is 270-467-0614. It's free and it takes under 20 minutes. 18 different badges standing behind one podium in South Carolina because it apparently took that many offices to finally read a spreadsheet that nobody was actually reading. The DOJ's fraud division stood up by Todd Blanche 115 days ago, just signed data sharing agreements with 10 state agencies across 6 states. Translation, for the first time, somebody's actually comparing the list of who's getting a check against who's actually real.
115 days ago, based on the vision of President Trump and Vice President Vance, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche announced the creation of the Fraud Division at the Department of Justice. And in the last 115 days, the DOJ has announced hundreds of major fraud enforcement actions across the country, including prosecutions against fraudsters targeting billions of taxpayer dollars meant to support our needy, sick, and elderly. That is our core mission, to protect taxpayer dollars and stop the brazen theft of America's wealth and generosity.
7 states finally signed the thing and let everybody look like a little peekaboo.
I'm here to tell you about a case we had in the Eastern District of North Carolina with a criminal named Nestle Mitchell, who was engaged in tax fraud. We worked together with the fraud division and the IRS criminal investigators to find that she had 6 employees taking advantage of a COVID tax break for self-employed people.
1 woman in North Carolina and 6 employees filed 420 fake claims for C-19 tax breaks that didn't apply to a single one of them, you guys. She personally pocketed $754,000 for filing out all the forms. She's convicted right now. I want to give you guys a little distinction here because SNAP fraud and SBA loan fraud and tax fraud aren't the same crime with the same paper trail. And that's exactly why it takes a room full of state treasurers, auditors, and inspector generals, to actually catch it. One office chasing all 3 would have missed her for probably another decade. Try telling the HOA that you're only going to follow the rules that you actually feel like following and see how fast the fines show up in your mailbox. That's the deal. Every fraud program in this country already signed. This is just the first year that anybody's actually enforcing it. Since July 4th alone, this coalition has charged 12 new defendants and stopped over $90 million with intended losses. The money was built to feed elderly people, house families, and pay small businesses that actually exist. Every dollar an 18-office coalition has to claw back is a dollar that should have never left the building in the first place. Here's what I actually think. Follow the money, and you don't need a motive, a party, a press release to explain the actual crime. The number does the entire job by itself. $90 million since July 4th isn't a simple talking point here. It is an actual receipt. Not everything over the past couple days needed 18 badges to prove what was going on. Some of it was just sitting in some guy's phone.
Developing right now, newly released texts from Dr. Anthony Fauci show he privately discussed COVID vaccine risks to pregnant women. Republican Senators Rand Paul and Ron Johnson dropped the first batch of messages from Fauci's government phone today in a January 2021 text chain between then CDC Director Rochelle Walensky and Dr. Vivek Murthy, who later became Surgeon General. Dr. Fauci, mentioned the second dose of the COVID shot, quote, theoretically could be associated with miscarriage in the first trimester. A week after the conversation, Fauci said the FDA has so far found no red flags among the more than 10,000 pregnant women.
Both statements came out of the same guy's mouth. 34,000 text messages and 522 voicemails, all sitting on a phone that Congress had to subpoena just to read.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has done this long Instagram live, this announcement that she is freezing her eggs, which I was like, holy shit. Like, that is really an interesting thing to kind of put out there.
Saturday night, a personal announcement she called a political risk. Sunday morning on a national Sunday show, not ruling out 2028 or Chuck Schumer's Senate seat. That is not confidence. That, my friends, is an AOC rollout.
Martha, the rollout on this was just horrendous. I mean, Mamdani has succeeded in making Soviet central planners look like overachievers. I mean, they just listed hundreds of thousands of properties virtually arbitrarily, and all these owners found themselves on this list. And many of them are saying, look, this is our only home, or we don't fit the criteria. But the Mamdani administration just sort of shrugged and said, we'll sort them out. The judge said that's not good enough. Now keep in mind, it's very unlikely that the tax itself will be struck down. The tax is going to go forward. That's why people are fleeing New York. But as people flee New York with their tax revenues, the rest of that culled herd become even more important. But you see this as the reaction of Mamdani really reveals what's really going on here, which is a class war.
South Carolina spent 150 days building a system to check a signature before anybody got charged. Our good friend Zohran Mamdani's office published a list of nearly 1 million homeowners. The homeowners' names, addresses, and property values without checking a single one first. And, my friends, the judge just made him take it down. Obviously, some of the people wrongfully flagged voted for him.
The salmonella-tainted jalapeno peppers driving this latest outbreak are being recalled tonight. The FDA says San Diego-based Coast Citrus distributors agreed to the action. It supplied the hot peppers to Chipotle and Qdoba restaurant chains. The companies say they are no longer serving those items.
Of course, a Minnesota woman is suing Chipotle, or how she would say it in Minnesota, Chipotle, after a burrito bowl put her in the hospital. Taco Bell and Chipotle both already took hits in regards of sales this month.
Barbara Kowalczyk leads George Washington University's Institute for Food Safety.
So how do we know the other 98% is safe?
Well, and that's not tested, that's just inspected. FDA doesn't have the resources to go out to those establishments and check to make sure that their food safety systems are working.
The FDA inspects 2% of the food crossing our border. 2%. The other 98% just walks in and hopes that nobody's counting, except wearing it. I was going to say a diarrhea joke, but I'm not going to say a diarrhea joke. We're going to keep that one in the pocket. America, 5 men in Louisiana got rich because nobody's checking a signature. A mayor's office in New York City, almost got away with the same habit on a bigger scale. One state finally built a system where somebody actually looks. Georgia's numbers this week are what happens when the looking gets done at the border. Louisiana's guilty plea are what happens when it doesn't get done at a police station. Everybody signed and nobody checked. Isn't it funny how two places that finally started checking, South Carolina's fraud coalition and a New York courtroom, aren't run by the same politicians who keep telling you accountability is impossible on a government budget. It's not impossible. It's just optional. And for 10 years in Louisiana, somebody chose the option that paid better. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.